Oh, and just a quick word, doesn't matter, but I'm silly. If anyone, follows the National Hockey League like I do, Toronto Maple Leafs, new hat, because I'm cuckoo. Older shirt. But point is, I'm not wrapped up in this losing team anymore. It's been 55, 56 years of my life since I won a Stanley Cup when I was 8, about to turn 9 that year. And so, but yeah, still wear the hat once in a while, still hope something might go better before I'm, long gone from this world. But the hope that they're losing, they've lost 8 games in a row right now. And I guess what I hope is that they're tanking. And if they could just trade Austin Matthews and Willie Nylander in the summer, what they need to do is, just start over. They had a 9-year window to compete for a Stanley Cup. They blew it. They choked. So anyway, for those who are NHL fans who might wonder, why is she still wearing that Maple Leaf crop? Well, I'm not an active fan, and I haven't watched a game this year. And the fact that they're not going to make the playoffs delights me, because I don't have to waste my time. So anyway, let's get into this. Okay, HMR here. To answer another question, there's so many interesting questions I get on the channel here. And the other reason why I do a lot of response videos or podcasts is because, with respect to all of you out there, you are the BPD exes or BPD family members or the favorite person or a friend or all these different relationship types, which most don't go really well with unfortunately with untreated BPD, but people with untreated BPD. But the thing I want to say, with all due respect to most of you out there are some people that have gone exceedingly far. I try to say this in the humblest way I can, that when I work with clients, they get super educated on what BPD is and what it isn't, and how it's not NPD and ASPD and histrionic this and all this stuff at the same time, more often than not. And so, I just wanted to say, if you think that you know everything about BPD and you got it all now, and like, what about you anyway? Chances are you really don't have an accurate understanding of their diagnosis unless they've been officially diagnosed. Because for those undiagnosed and those untreated, diagnosed and untreated as well, but people are guessing so much. And one thing that your borderline might have done, you're like, well, that's narcissistic for sure, and you don't know. And I'll have more to say about this coming up. And when I say you don't know, I'm not saying you don't know anything. I'm not saying you're not a smart person. Just that if you're a BPDX or off again, you're missing a lot about what's happening to you, regardless of what you think you know about borderlines or not, or borderline personality disorder versus the whole gamut of cluster B, which there are aspects of cluster B, 3 of them, that aren't even in the DSM: sadistic personality disorder, dark triad, and dark tetrad. What's up with the DSM? So this person, on a short that I did, Confront a BPD on Bad Behavior. Why did I think that could just be a short? Anyway, interesting questions, comments, etc. And this person said, and I wouldn't take it this way anyway, but they said, I don't want to sound disrespectful. Well, thank you for that, because lots of people don't care about that. But that's nice of you. English is not my first language. I'm generally asking here, what is the alternative then? So what is it? The commenter is asking, what's the alternative to not confronting a person with BPD on their bad to traumatic to etc. behavior? And then the commenter goes on to say, express is the alternative, basically. They're wondering to express our needs, or the way they hurt us makes them defensive. Well, actually, you know what? This idea that, the borderline does something that makes the codependent feel this, that, and the other thing, and then the codependent does something that makes borderline feel this, that, and the other thing. No. Because in that case, if you're a codependent and you think the borderline makes you feel, they can hurt you. They can definitely hurt you and traumatize you, and you could have a lot of feelings in response and reaction to that. But it's not making you feel what you feel. It's the fantasy bond and the trauma bond, and you still fighting to know this person when you don't know who they are at all, that really creates a lot of your feelings. So having said that, first, they do things that do hurt people. This idea that if you do this, it makes someone do that, and if you say that, it makes someone feel this, it's just not accurate. And it's talked about a lot in psychology, and I speak a lot about it with clients, but it's something that most people, it's just this, like, really bad, really erroneous, like, speak out there. Oh, I'm sorry I said such and such. Did I make you feel this? Did I make you feel that? If we go through our lives thinking that everything someone else does, borderlines do a lot. Okay, I'm giving you that, right? But if we go through our lives thinking that everything that everybody else does makes us feel something, then if you happen to be that way, you need some therapy, you need some help, you might have some codependency, because not even everything that the borderline does makes you feel how you end up feeling. It contributes to it, obviously. But then there's your choices and your decisions. Choices and decisions that by codependence are so often not made at all. So, the commenter says, express our needs or the way they hurt us makes them defensive and even more aggressive or hurtful. But not saying anything, well, is better. Well, no, I'm not saying, I'm saying it's futile to say anything, right? Because untreated people with BPD are not extremely well treated enough people with BPD, or people with all the patterns of BPD not diagnosed. They don't have a clue to do with what you're trying to communicate. And that is a tragedy, because it doesn't give them permission to behave the way they do and to hurt people the way they do. So, and so the person says, but not saying anything well is better. No, it's not better. It's the impossibility of these relationships. It's why you need to get out. It's why you need to stop trying to recycle it on and off, hear back from the BPDX, get back together after you've been ghosted or your thought discarded or whatever the case. It's not that it's better not to say what you're feeling, not to say what's happening to you. It's just impossible to do it. So I would say, should you confront people with BPD or patterns of with their bad behavior? No. Why? Because they're just going to hurt you more. And you're just going to, and lots of people do that in cycles. They go back to the borderline. They try to explain it. They try to say how they feel, which is all human to want to do. But the person with BPD is going to, like the commenter said, get defensive. When they get defensive, they split. When they split, they get emotionally dysregulated. They're going to come at you. I mean, a quiet borderline may do other things, but it's still not going to be a conversation. And a petulant borderline is going to come at you, and you're just going to be getting more traumatized. But even though I said all that, please hear me that I'm not saying it's better not to confront their bad behavior. Because what's the opposite of not confronting their bad behavior? Ending the relationship and going no contact. Because you have needs, you have wants, you have desires, you deserve so much more. But so many codependents, excuse me, just continue to go in the circles to chase after the person with BPD to calm them down and make it okay. Oh, pardon me. And when you're doing that, you're losing yourself more and more. Your nervous system is getting more and more reactive, whether you're getting reactive along with it or not. And it can lead to not only more psychological issues and pain, but also physical issues. And so, no, it's not better to not say anything, keep them calm. It's like you got to get out of the relationship. But that's what the commenter said. So commenter says, well, is better about keep them calm does not ease our suffering, and that's not fair. That's very true. And if you try to confront borderline bad behavior or some of the patterns of, it's not going to ease your suffering either. It's going to increase your suffering because of the way they'll react and how they just want to have that conversation with you, period. And so then if you try not to, no, I don't mean for people to stay in the relationship and just keep taking stuff, but there's no conversation to have there with people with BPD, patterns of, or diagnosed and untreated, because they don't understand their impact on others. And essentially in what is all they present in very traumatic and abusive ways, It's all about they're trying to survive. They don't have time to think about how you feel. No, they lack that empathy. And maybe sometimes some people with BPD will say, I really care that I hurt you this way or whatever. Great, okay. But it's intellectual intelligence making up for lack of self, lack of emotional intelligence, and lack of emotional maturity. So that's not going to stop the behavior. So even if you get an apology, even if you get an acknowledgement of something, you won't get that conversation usually. For most people untreated or not well enough treated with BPD or patterns of and not diagnosed. And the bottom line with all that is, commenter says, it doesn't ease our suffering if we don't say something. Of course, it doesn't if you do. And that's not fair. Well, I don't know. You tell me, but I don't think anything in life is particularly fair. I think that fair is a word and a concept that people will grow much more emotionally mature and will learn to emotionally regulate better, whether they have BPD, through all the therapy they need, or whether you're a person with codependency and you're having trouble regulating yourself now because of what's happening with the borderline and how you're still so committed to staying there. So because it's not about fair or not fair. It just is what it is, and it might be really traumatic, really unhealthy. Like I say, these relationships are freaking impossible. But so many of you out there with codependency, you don't want to hear that. You don't. You want to keep on suffering, not consciously, but your childhood woundedness is predominantly pushing that in an unconscious way that you're chasing after something you don't even know about. All the while blaming the borderline for everything. And they do a lot. I'm not trying to say they don't. And so, but don't get stuck in fair or not fair, because it's going to be nothing. It's just not a good measure of anything. What is the factor or event that makes a BPD wanting to seek therapy and personal improvement? If it's not through seeing how they hurt people around them, also themselves. Well, first of all, they often don't realize how much they're hurting others. They often, a lot of childhood trauma involved in this, despite what people like Salerno say, because Salerno's just wrong. And the 3 people he can mention that were his mentors, there's way more on the other side. And those of us clinically involved, we don't believe that all of BPD is 100% genetic, nor can they prove it, but Salerno still says it. In a salacious way, though, because in other interviews I try to watch of that boring guy, he will say it might be 50%, it might be whatever. So, I don't know about 50-50 or not, but we don't know about the percentage of genetic whatever. And then what psychiatry used to say back in the 90s was whether you're born predisposed or with a genetic possibility of developing BPD or not, if you are, let's say people are, I don't know, then it still needs kind of an invalidating to abusive context in the family of origin to set it off. So these people don't know what they're doing half the time. They're not as consciously aware as you might think. Some maybe more so than others, but all they're doing is trying to survive. Yes, at everybody else's expense, and in a myriad of ridiculously poor behavior and abusive ways and traumatic ways. So you, as a person with BPD, 98% of them anyways, untreated, if not more, if not really just 100%. You can calm them down sometimes, you think, but actually if they weren't ready to get calm or something like that, or if their system hadn't blown through the cycle, they wouldn't be calm just because you're trying to calm them down, necessarily. And how can a person with BPD, get personal improvement if it's not through seeing how they hurt others, and if you don't tell them something? Well, like I've said for 31 years online now, you shouldn't, and others have said, here and there, you should never tell a person that you think they have BPD. But everybody does it anyway, right? Well, you shouldn't confront bad behavior because they are not going to hear you. They're going to defend. And when they defend, they get abusive toward you as object of their parent representation, a bad wounding parent. So There is no magical formula. There is really, in most cases, no way for you, the codependent, who wants a relationship to keep going, but you shouldn't confront the bad behavior, right? Because that won't work. Then what are you going to do? Like, how are they going to ever learn if they don't hear from you and get feedback about how they affect others? They can't hear that. They can't handle the truth. And the answer is you need to leave the relationship. This is what so many more people need to hear. And I'm out here to work with you if you're in this predicament, dilemma, you're really hurting, the rumination, you don't know how to leave the relationship, etc. That's my specialty, among other things, is helping people to learn how to get through that healing process and to leave and to go no contact and to understand why it's all, you need to learn to cope with new things and different pain. And it's not easy, and I'm not going to lie and say it's not painful. It is, but it can't be. Healing processes are not as painful as staying with the borderline when you're being abused. And you could be in more danger than you realize, psychologically and or physically, whether that's a male borderline or a female borderline. So they're not going to hear you. You're not going to be able to help them with personal improvement. How are you going to help a borderline by telling them stuff or trying to get them to hear you about how they're affecting you and what they're doing, and it's wrong and it's not helpful and it's toxic? And how do you think you're going to get through to them when there's nobody home to get through to? And so with all due respect to people with BPD, when I say that, I don't mean they're nobodies, but they don't have a self. They don't have a container of self. They don't have any understanding of self from which to know what the heck you're talking about. And whether they know or not ever how they've affected you, they're not going to admit it. They have no capability to try to repair any rupture. And that's what you're trying to do if you're going to try to tell them about their behavior. And if you think you're going to try to tell them about their behavior because you're going to help them with personal improvement, no, they need to go to therapy straight up. Start with DBT, but then progress to transference-focused psychotherapy. And they need specialized treatment for something like 8 to 16 years. So you can't hang around and wait for them to change and grow and etc. And people with BPD that heal and recover, I know this personally, we don't look back to the people we were with. We understand ourselves better, we grow, we change, we learn how to relate, etc. And we don't look back. So you don't want to be sitting there waiting because they're not coming back if they go the route of therapy. So many people are hanging in with someone in therapy and with BPD, and they're not even in the right modality. And all they're doing is going to their therapist and BSing about you and projecting out everything they do to you and saying you do it to them. And then they learn buzzwords and key things, and then they start weaponizing the therapy that you think is going to save your relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no easy way out of this. There's no easy way to break your codependent fantasy bond, your trauma bond with the person with BPD. You have to get into therapy. And like I said, I'm an expert in this area. I work with people if I resonate with them. So if I resonate with you, you might want to consider that, because these relationships need to end. And you don't all need to wait for the borderline to split to devalue, a major devaluation, ghost and or discard you, or you don't know which is which for like a long time. You need to get in therapy to learn more about all this, understand it with yourself in the picture for a change, because codependents are always focusing too much on the borderline and really rarely ever on themselves. So, and what is it, a factor that would make a person with BPD want to seek therapy? There's no answer to that. You don't have it. No human being holds the recipe for the borderline in their life to want to go get therapy. You don't. You got no control. You got no say. You can give them ultimatums and all that, but you're helpless. You're helpless in a toxic relationship that's hurting you more and more, that you're losing yourself to more and more, that you're ignoring yourself and abandoning yourself to keep trying to have a war with this borderline to get them to figure stuff out. It doesn't work. You need to stop doing it. Get out of the relationship. And if they want to go to therapy, they need to go to therapy for themselves. When they go to therapy to try to rescue a relationship, forget it. When you want to go to couples counseling with them, I'm just telling you right now, I'll provide couples counseling. You want to book a couple sessions, and it never works. I'll be honest. It never works. I've worked with lots of people in couples therapy. I've not had one success story, and I don't believe that that's anything that I can't do, but I can't make borderlines change. And borderlines, I mean, I work with people with BPD. That's different. It's a long process. I've had successes there. But people with BPD can't do couples counseling if they don't know who they are, if they don't know the ground they're standing on, if they have lack of safety. No, it doesn't work. But if you still have to go ahead and try it, well, just bring, like, metaphorically speaking, a ton of psychological bandages with you. And you're going to be throwing your money away on top of it. You need to spend your money on your therapy, not couples therapy with an untreated borderline. Please. Seriously, people. I want to be kind. I have empathy for y'all. But did I just say an American word? No offense to my American friends or clients. It's just that regime stuff. Anyway, and by the way, I have clients who voted for Trump. It's none of my business, okay? And then, so this person was saying they need some feedback and realization of the consequences of their actions. Yeah, but that's therapy. And trust me, as somebody who works with people with BPD, even in therapy, that's not an easy or short process. And it's not a process in which I don't get screamed at often. You don't have the recipe. You don't have the skill. It's not your responsibility. You cannot bring them to realizations that will help them change. That's an unfortunate, really tragic truth about borderline personality disorder. And the efforts of codependence that are so in vain, that hurt you so much. And then, so the commenter says, honestly, all of us need feedback and realization of the consequences of our actions. Yes. But you said, regardless if we have BPD or another condition. Well, I don't know that everybody in the world has a condition necessarily, but okay. And you said to learn from others is essential to form better bonds and interactions. Not necessarily. I mean, first you have to be healthier. Codependents need to be healing codependency in their own therapy. Again, out here to work with people that resonate with you. People with BPD need to go through a really daunting, super painful, super long kind of therapy to find self, to build a container of self, to be able to unlearn all the maladaptive defenses they learned because those defenses help them survive in childhood. And the bottom line is, I'm not saying, most of us, averagely mentally healthy people, might need once in a while a little bit of reflection from someone who cares about us, or might have just, like somebody might say, hey, you just said, did you mean, I've had that happen with a couple friends here and there. I'll be like, no. I said, but what I really meant was, and that's what healthy average people do with each other, that borderlines can't do with you. And so I think it's really important to realize that, yes, we do need to have self-awareness. But a lot of you out there with codependency, and with respect, commenter, you as well, you lack self-awareness in yourself. Maybe if somebody were to reflect, maybe something I say here to you about how you need to understand you more and get this feedback to your comment so you can maybe think about what can you do for you. Maybe that's a little bit of feedback for you. But codependence, in the throes of trying to maintain these relationships with people with BPD or patterns of BPD who are just not well treated or not treated at all, you have no power. Let me say it again. You have no control. You're trying. You have no power and no control. You are helpless in the face of how to help a borderline change or grow or realize how to self-reflect when they don't have a self. They have to go through years of therapy for that. And many codependents, I'm not just saying this to the commenter, many codependents out there, some people still not willing to admit it, but it's part of the pattern, well-established part of the pattern with people in relationships with borderlines and maybe narcissists too, but I don't speak on that because there's a billion people talking about that in circles. So I'm going to stay true to talking about BPD and BPD alone here, in codependency. So anyway, what I was just going to summarize with is the fact that, yes, it's helpful to have feedback from others at times in our lives, right? But we have to be able to be emotionally mature enough to really be self-aware enough to know ourselves, to consider the feedback. As I'll just say in my own personal life, I've had some feedback. I'm not going to say why, but you're all going to hear about what I'm going through right now later when I get through it. It's a big health threat, but I'm going to make it. So bottom line is, right now I got people who don't know what to say to me, people who are, I don't know, and it's like really difficult, but we can continue to communicate in ways that we don't hurt each other, because it's about saying what you really have to say, and it's meta communication, and it's having emotional maturity to say to set a boundary with someone. Because of what I'm going through right now, I've been diagnosed with something, and I'm going to be okay. And like I said, I'll make it public after I go through a major something coming up soon. And bottom line is that, like there are people in my life right now that I don't want to hear another word about what I'm kind of battling through or going through, or however we would put that, on a physical health level is what I'm talking about. But the point is, I've had to say to some friends, like, listen, I just can't deal with where you're at with this right now. I can't deal with what you're saying because, and I've given them a list, here's so many things you don't say to people who are in my position right now. And so I've said to a few friends recently, because more stress in my life with this is, I love you. I want us to always have a solid friendship, but could you please just give me space? Maybe for like the next month, 2 months or so. I don't have the bandwidth for this. And so they don't understand maybe why I feel the way I do. And I don't understand why they're saying the claptrap stuff they're saying. But we can agree to take space, and we can agree to still respect each other, and we can have that communication. Borderlines aren't capable of that at all. And a lot of people with codependency might be capable of that in some ways in your life. But when you turn to the borderline, I mean, you just negate and abandon yourself. So I think that's enough said on that. And really, yes, of course, healthy people will flourish, as I have been, even in the case where I asked a few friends for like two months minimum, I said, space. And I said, and I will call you when I'm ready, if that's okay with you. And we discussed it. It wasn't like I gave them an edict or an ultimatum. And I tried to explain best I could what I was experiencing and why. And so, yeah, they probably are reflecting on that. I think those friendships will be fine. My partner's been having a little bit of a tough time lately, too, because what I'm going through just makes people either, I don't know, mess it all up, or want to say too much, or not know what to say all the wrong things. But anyway, not to belabor which my situation right now, just to say that, codependence, what you need to learn more about is how to be more responsible emotionally and more regulated for yourself. And people park their self-worth and their self-esteem and all of a whole bunch of childhood woundedness and family of origin unmet needs in your childhood, park it all in the borderline. Because in the fantasy bond, you think this is the person for you. And then stuff starts to fall apart. And then as they don't esteem you anymore, as they don't give you any worth, as they don't provide you with what you felt they were providing you for in the beginning, then now you don't really have any left inside to give yourself. And that scares the you-know-what out of people. People feel lost. I've had clients recently and all through the 31 years I've been working online. Is it almost 32 now? I really don't know. I have to go back and count. Who cares? But all this time online, decades, right, working with clients. And I mean, a lot of them are more so than ever now. BPDXs are, maybe they were just discarded, maybe they've been ghosted, maybe it's been a couple years and they've been waiting and they want to reverse Hoover. All kinds of different situations. But they are falling apart. Some of them absolutely collapsing. Not being able to go to work, not being able to function, feeling like they don't want to live anymore. I'm talking about BPDXs now, codependents. I'm not talking about people with BPD. The unaliving rate of people who have been with borderlines is really escalating. I mean, it's generally escalating in the world too, but I think there's some correlation between how many people stay way too long, trying too hard, and lose themselves. and then run and think psych meds are going to help them, which not a good idea. And or they start, maybe they had a drinking problem before and they start it again, or they fall into it again, or a substance abuse problem of another sort and they fall into that again. Or maybe like I've had clients even with no background of any alcohol abuse or substance abuse, but like they are so devastatingly lost and broken after a BPD breakup, whatever way it happens, and you can't accept it and it hurts too much, and the rumination is a protection, it doesn't help you, and I'll be talking more about that. So the bottom line is that people end up falling apart. And here I am to tell you that when you can't confront the borderline about the bad stuff and the stuff that's hurting you and what you need and how you matter, etc., what's the opposite? The commenter went through some things thinking, well, that wouldn't be fair for us. Don't they need reflection? But they have no self to have any self-awareness or reflect from. So the answer is, as daunting and as difficult to impossible as it feels, if you haven't walked out on that borderline yet, please do it ASAP. Book some sessions with me if I resonate with you. Let's go. Let's help you. All growth and what I'm going through physically right now, everything we have to deal with, it causes so much, pain, psychological or physical. And we have to go through pain. We have to go through stress. We have to go through a period of an unknown if we're going to make change for ourselves, whether it's physical health, mental health, or both. So you need to think about, why are you trying to make this relationship better? I know, you want the good, right? The good that maybe you're getting less of, but when it's good, it's so good. And when it's awful, it's so awful. You're addicted to, not the borderline, the intermittent reinforcement cycle that makes you feel better and stop ruminating if you can just get their attention again, or if they'll hoover you back. You need to walk away. You need to get in therapy. You need to stop the relationship right now, and you need to go full no contact. Anything short of that, they're not responsible for all your suffering anymore. Now you're making a choice. Now you're making a conscious choice. Well, I don't care what AJ Mahari says. I'm going to make this person change. Good luck. No, you're not. Time to take care of you.